Welcome to Orienteering in Denmark. My name is Ernst Poulsen, and I orienteer in and out around Copenhagen. And today we are at a division match north of Copenhagen in Skov. And as you may have noticed, the course setter is playing a small trick on us all here from the start. May have thought that you should just run ahead on the path, but um, I'd seen the map and knew that there would be a risk of, you know, having to turn. And yeah, we all had to turn 90 degrees straight out of the start box. And then not much of a route choice per se, just having to read the small rides and paths and cut corners and not waste any time stopping along the way. So that's what we're doing right here. There's I've I've managed to turn, find the small ride, and now here's the small marsh area, and now I just have to run up that hill in the right direction. So there should be a control up there. Um, and the as it's a division match. All starting times were chosen by random, and this means I have the everyone. I'm starting first today. I have 40 guys chasing me, and um, a couple of those may. That's why that may be why I was a bit nervous here, tripping it from the start. Um, a couple of those who started 2 and 4 minutes behind me, I knew that they were faster than me, so it was just a matter of how long could I keep them behind me. But so far, control number one went fairly well, and the second leg starting part is not difficult. It's just keep running, fortunately down the hill. Rudskov, which we're in, is for Danish conditions a little more hilly. So despite the fact that it's only a 4.6 kilometer course, then yeah, um, I'll try to keep my pace up and not. I know I'll have to walk some of the hills, especially later on on this course, but just try to get up to speed again as soon as possible. And there are a lot of paths, so like in a fork like this, don't make an error and just try to run and read the map and make your errors as small as possible. Um, Here I'm trying to use. I knew that I'd have to read the contours. In some Danish forests, there are hardly any, but here the contours are pretty helpful. So if you read them right, you can save yourself a couple of meters here and there, and that all counts. Um, Normally, I just run for the fun of it, but today there's a bit of a competition spirit. We're running against three other clubs in the third division, and yeah, we're just average guys, but we're having fun trying to beat the other guys, and that's pretty much orienteering in a nutshell. Yes, there's an elite, but there's also the large majority. We're just men and women, young and old, who of all ages, who try to have fun. Here I'm trying to run on the curb, but I know that I'll have to climb a bit because otherwise it'll it'll be too far getting all the way around the hill. I could stay further down, but I thought maybe I'd lose too many meters. So I should hit a rock, a small one, by even by Danish standards, somewhere around here, or at least I should be able to, turn, and then I can see that thicket straight ahead of me, and there's a small rock on the right hand side. That may be, in fact, be the right one. So, and then there should be a path where I can cross a small ditch further down. Yeah, there's a runner crossing that point right now. So the two runners who are hunting me are Martin from Roskilde and Bruno from the police orienteering club of Copenhagen, in green and red blue, and they are from competing clubs. So if I can beat those, or at least not lose, by too much, it'll be an advantage when counting points. Here, fortunately, it's just one of my club mates from Amok, my orienteering club, who's passing me up the hill, and another guy from Ballerup, who's also actually from a competing club. Now we're entering the last stretch here, and there's a control over there, but I can see that it's on top of the hill, and there's a lot of fallen trees. And in Denmark, we often draw those as on one scale 1 to 10,000 or 7,500. We draw those as fall or like hedges, but you have to pass them. You can pass them, but it may take some time, and they're fairly good for control posts. So, and there it is. So just down to the end, checking. At this point, I usually check the number, because if I try to read it further ahead, I tend to forget the number. So just punch that, and then down the hill and hit that open field. And try to hit it in the right direction, as not to, to lose too much. Make that. I was thinking if I should try to aim for that path over there, but it's a small fence, a passable fence, so there may be electricity in it, but you can always crawl under. So that's what I usually do. Again, there's not time to stop and read the map here. But the forest is fairly open, so you can, in that sense, it's also, in most places, fairly easy, but with some exceptions, which we'll see later. Here, I was trying to read the map, and in fact, I didn't see that there's a small gate further on, but I decided to just run for that small here where I could pass easily. And then I passed the fence fairly quickly, just to get it over and done with. Trying to keep very low, not to get electrocuted. They're not dangerous, but they can give you a good sap. And on the left, there's like an open forested area with trees, scattered trees, but it's actually a little more dense. And then there should be a small well. Often those are like concrete things here in a small ditch, in a dry ditch, by the way. And there it is. So you can't see it on the cutout here, but there's an option of going both right and left around the lake. But almost all runners turned left here. And I decided to try to stay as close to the lake as possible. But again, those are thorny trees and not very nice to get stuck in. But it wasn't as bad as I thought it could have been. Yeah, trying to get loose. I got stuck there. So the leg is on my right hand side, but in fact it's a bit difficult to see exactly um, the contours of it from where I was running. But as long as I stay close to it, it should be possible to follow it. And again, trying to read a little bit ahead. Um, and there may be a steep part of the hill further on. Here I'm looking left and right just to check if I did in fact pass that last bit of the lake and that last finger pointing north, and I didn't. So and I took a look to see if it was actually possible to run across, but didn't look like a good option. So I can see the end of that steep part of the hill. So now I know fairly precisely where I am, and there should be a small thicket out in the open area. I don't know what type of thicket it is, but sometimes it's possible to see those from a distance. Here it wasn't really, so I was a little confused. But I decided that if I could hit that white open area just inside the forest, and then it would just be on my right hand side. It had to be. And it's just down here around the corner. There it is. So here, 4 to 5 is a longer stretch. I was thinking of going straight north, but decided that I wanted to go back between the two lakes. I don't think there's a big difference in distance, but I can see that those who chose to go straight north and hit those paths did, in fact, go a little faster. I was afraid I wouldn't hit the right paths or get confused, and I thought, let me just go back from where I came. That should be easy enough. But and I was thinking maybe if I missed that gate, it would be kind of stupid. But it would have been a better option um, to go straight north. So back to the open meadow and just turn north as soon as possible, as soon as it's runnable, and it's fairly open. So just go ahead. So most of these legs are not very difficult, um, but again, then those small mistakes or route choices do become more important, or small mistakes that you make do become important. And here I could have probably saved half the minute by aiming for the path. Going here, I just thought it was a fairly good choice, but it seemed that, from comparing with the tracking of everyone else, it was just a bit slower. But and I made a couple of those small errors, but nothing um, nothing major, and that was my aim today, was just make sure you don't make any large errors. So we're down to crawling again. And fortunately, I'm right in front of that small path. I could see that from a distance, despite it being fairly small. I could just see it from the meadow. So it was fairly easy to hit that straight on. And then there'll be a big path up here where I just have to run along the hill. And the only thing is I have to make sure I turn at the right point, but let's see, it shouldn't be too difficult. See, we're climbing a small bit of a hill here, and on camera it always looks fairly flat, but I get down to walking on some of these bits, and then I always have to convince myself to start running. You can do it, and then it's downhill, so just start. It'll work. So the path is fairly straight with a bit of curls here, but I'm trying to read the map for the next leg too. And that can be a little dangerous because sometimes when you start to read the map, because you think, hey, there's nothing to read here, the control is right next to the path, you'll forget to follow, your exact position. And then maybe you'll run too far or too short. And I believe there's a small path or ride on the left-hand side, which I'm passing now, and I noticed that, but I was almost going too far here. Last minute I started reading where I actually was, and I noticed that it does make a small bend here, and then I can see the fallen tree, and there should be a small depression up behind that tree. So I just have to climb here and find that. Somewhere in the thicket, there's a control. And there it is. Not too difficult. Well hidden, but not too difficult. So the next control is further up the hill, and there are a couple of rides where I can go through, but they all look the same. So that could get a little confusing, but I'm out in the open. The map is fairly precise here, well drawn. Good job by the map maker. But the rides are sometimes a little hard to find. They're somewhere in the thicket, so I believe I do turn a little too far right here, but it doesn't matter too much. Now I'm stopping to read the map, and I should just run to get to the big road and then run through, because the control strategy here is the control is at the top of the hill. So if I get to the top of the hill, I should be in the open part. Then I should be near the control. Then I see there's a small path here, and it's the one with there should be a small rock on the left, and I believe it's the one we're passing right here. And then there's some thicket where I don't read the map too much. Just there's the fallen tree, so I know where I am. Just go for the opening. Don't read the map too much. Just run through wherever it's possible to get through. Keep as high a pace as possible. Don't get stuck in something. Yeah, a little left, a little right, and then, yeah. And then maybe I'm reading the map again to see if I can see that thicket, but here's the fallen tree, so I should be pretty near, and there it is. Maybe in fact the first fallen tree was that thicket on the left, and this is actually the fallen tree. It can be a little tricky. So here there's actually a little bit of a route choice. I could stay up here in the open. There's some sort of a path up here, which is not really a path, but it almost looks like a path in some places, but it's just generally open, and I should just try to run as fast as I can. And I could go straight all the way on top of the hill, or I could turn a little down on one of the rides and try to get a faster pace, because it does. There are some thickets at the end, and here I'm trying to read the map. I thought I saw a path down to the major road, but it wasn't the right place, so I kept running for a bit. And here I'm actually winging it a little bit, because in some of these areas, it's not always clear from a distance what the best route choice is. So here, exactly here, I redecide. I notice I think it's there's too much thicket. It'll be too slow, and I didn't see the right open space to get through. So, but I see that if I turn left here and just run down, maybe I can cut across, or just run, simply just run. I can see afterwards that some runners managed to stay up on the hill, and maybe they even saved some meters in height, and I ran a little extra, but I didn't want to get stuck in those thickets. Sometimes they take you a little out of course too. So now it should just be straightforward. Turn left at the second path, and there should be a small depression up here. A lot of mountain bikers in the forest in the weekends, and that's okay. They look out for us, and sometimes these guys, I said, just watch out, a lot of runners today, just as a service announcement. They just say hi, and we all say have a nice day. It's just common courtesy. We have a lot of people sharing the forest today. And there's the control. Sometimes those controls and depressions can be a little hard to see from a distance. This one was very shallow, so very easy to see. So the next control is, again, I read it, the direction ahead, which I often try to do, so I can just keep running. I can see that open grassy hill straight ahead, a little to the left. But if I run on the curve, on the edge of that one, and then there should be two large trees. And I ran in this forest 3 months ago, and I had a couple of controls, and that actually with near large trees, and those that actually became a problem for some runners, because they made a mistake of, because just outside of this cutout of the map that you see, there are two other large trees, and they mistook one from the other. So here I'm just going down the hill, trying to see if I can spot that thicket or the large tree. And then right in the middle, I noticed that there's a large tree on the backdrop of of the gray skies, and I think, oh, that's it. So it was hard to see from a distance, but when I saw the big crown of the tree, I knew that it had to be either the first or the second, and it's actually the second one. And I get a little stuck, so stretch out, and that's good enough. On to the next control, back up across the flat hill where I was on my way to control number 2. Yeah, I got a little confused here. Hadn't read ahead as I should have. But I decided just to go back across the open flat area. The map reads as if it's open all the way. There's a bit of thickets here and there and things, a little bit of undergrowth, which is sometimes slowing you down, but not too much. So it's just back up on top, and then there's a path which will take me halfway to the control. The good thing is that I've run past the first 5 controls, and still I haven't seen my competitors. That's a good sign, because 2 minutes isn't a whole lot of time when I know that they're faster than me. One of my good old clubmates and his kid, who always say hello when we meet. So while running here, I'm trying to read the map a little bit ahead, because it's not, I know I just have to stay on this side here of the hill and then cross a little later here. And then the challenge is sort of finding the right angle. There should be a couple of fallen trees down there. If I'm lucky, I can see those in a bit. And I'll just use those as halfway marks. And yeah, there they are. That's fairly easy to read. And I decide to stay a little high and just trying to see if, and there's actually, I believe I saw, yeah, you can see the control from here. It's very fortunate that, yeah, it's Danish springtime, but the leaves haven't started coming out yet. So if we come back in a month, these controls will be a lot harder to find. So here there are actually a couple of options. I could go left and run on the paths, which probably would have been faster. I decided to just go straight ahead, as I thought, it's a fairly open forest. But if you look at the map, the last third, there's some undergrowth, and maybe it's a little more tricky to, the last secure point is a little further away from the control. So in that sense, I could lose a little time. But I'm cutting across here there are a couple of small, minor marsh areas which I can use to give me the right direction. And what I didn't know was that there's a big ditch, a dry ditch up here, and it's it's fairly steep, but it does take a little time to cross. And there's no bridge; it's just up and down. So this is where it starts to get a little slow. I'm looking for a way through. And there should hopefully be a small path in here. But it's one of those that you could actually miss if you're not very cautious. But here it is. So the one thing is I don't know exactly where I am on this path right now. So, and this is where it could go wrong. There's just a lot of fallen trees and a small ditch and a couple of lakes a little apart. And I'm a little bit in doubt. But here's the ditch, and that actually helps me because now I know where I am. But I'm spending a little time reading the map here just to make sure because sort of a bit on high alert because I don't want to make a mistake. And there's the fallen tree. And there's a small depression. And I believe that maybe, but I wasn't sure. And here I'm turning because I was thinking of going back. Here on the left, that guy in red, that's the guy who started 2 minutes behind me. But I wasn't sure. I didn't really notice because I was so busy. Should I go left or right around that lake? And I thought maybe, well, it doesn't look as bad on the left-hand side here, the north side, I believe. So I redecided within a couple of seconds, and I thought, but that was a mistake. I can see that those who went back to the path and then took all those paths leading almost to the control, it was just faster running on those paths. Yeah, they may have had to cut across a couple of places, but it was faster. I didn't feel that this was slow, but there's a bit of undergrowth and a bit of thicket, and yeah, I do stop once to read the map to make sure I'm in the using the right direction. But yeah, here I'm slowing down. I don't know exactly where I am on this part, and it doesn't really matter too much because there's a big path down here, which is a great catching feature. The disadvantage is that, yes, there's a big path, but I won't, as if, if I just run, I won't know exactly where I hit that big path. Now, there's a hill on the other side, which will help me, but I could lose some time trying to find out exactly where I am. So I decide to run a little bit on the path, look a little bit here and there, try to find out where I am. But I could have just continued straight across and then run on the curve to the control. But I decide that it's a little more risky. So if I continue on the path and then there's a fallen tree there, And a little further ahead, there's an opening. And if I just enter here, then there's a lot better chance of hitting the right option. The tracking doesn't show too well on today. It jumps a little bit here and there. But going down that small bit of half invisible ride, and then there should be a tree root down here somewhere on the right hand side. And there it is. Now the next leg is a bit confusing. There are a lot of paths, but some of them actually require me to go up the hill again, and I don't want to do that. And there's a small mountain bike path down there, and that's an easy way to cross that big ditch, which is I learned from before, which was annoying. So I choose just to run in the general direction because I know there'll be some big paths over there. So here I don't actually read all the details. I just know go down the hill and just run in a general course. Keep your map straight. Make sure it's that I'm running in the right direction, and then I just double check here because I have to get off the path. I'm just trying to adjust the course so I don't miss those big paths. And there are only 2 more controls, so this is not the place to make mistakes. There's also a guy in green over there. I'm wondering if he's one of my competitors, and he may actually well be. But here's the big path. We're running a little uphill again. But again, there are only 2 more controls, so I'm trying to pull it all together and just use every last bit of strength and stamina. That doesn't mean I'm running fast at this point, because the hill at the top of the map is infamous for runners in this area. But we're not going back on the top of it. But everyone who runs in this forest hates it. Here I had thought of going left, and then I redecide because I noticed that it's open and forest, and I'll save maybe 100 yards, 100 meters. And the person in green was probably not a competitor, but you never know. So this leg is fairly typical for today. Their strategy is often just try to run as much as, the first part of the leg without reading too many details. Get some, look out for the big catching features, roads or lakes or big marshes. On here I have a marsh area on the left, which I can easily follow. There's a re-entrant, which I can just follow at the end of it, which will lead me straight. But then right before the control, we've seen this several times, and it's fairly typical for orienteering, a lot of details. And if you don't slow down, or if you're not aware of exactly which ones of those details you need to focus on, then you can lose a lot of time on those last 50 yards, 50 meters. It's not difficult as really difficult, but you could just lose time. So keep reading the map, use all the contours. Whatever you do, just see if you can find anything ahead of you. Look up ahead in the landscape. I noticed that there are a couple of fallen trees, and I have a fairly good idea that may be actually where I'm going, but I'm not 100% certain which ones of the falling trees it is that I'm seeing ahead of me. So I continue on the path a bit. And I have an idea that I'm getting close to the intersection, so I turn up to the fallen tree. And then I should be able to see the second fallen tree from here. Yeah, and there's something over there which looks like a couple of fallen trees. So just keep going uphill. Running out of breath. Can't see the control until now. There it is. Can't see the control flag, but there I saw the blue unit, the SI unit, and there's Bruno and Martin in red, Bruno in green, and now there's just one more control. And these guys have caught up to me with 2 and 4 minutes respectively. So this is just a mad dash for the last control, and try not to make mistakes. And who has the best nerves, because they may have caught up to me. Yeah, sure. I knew they probably would. I'm glad they didn't catch up to me before, but they should, and I'll try my best not to give them the pleasure of losing on that last control too. I'm not gonna die out here in the forest without giving them a run for their money. But here I'm a little in doubt. Hey, in what direction am I actually running? So I use a couple of seconds for that. Of course, a couple of mountain bikers coming just as I'm trying to cross. Martin is ahead of me already. And can I cross here? Well, I just could, but Martin is extremely fast. I believe I saw Bruno on the right, but he disappeared, and I don't know where he is. That may be why I'm looking over my shoulder. I'm not 100. Yeah, well, here I noticed that that's the marsh area I passed on the way to control number 1. So now I know where I am, and I know that maybe I should just turn right a little bit and then find a ride which will take me almost straight to the last control. There is Bruno, and he's actually running a little bit in the wrong direction. See, everyone's a bit nervous because one more control. And there are 2 or 3, and the tracking may actually be slightly off, but I'm not certain. Maybe it's okay. At the end of the path, that was just Martin who ran. Too bad. Or darn it. But let me just give it a try. See if I can keep Bruno behind me. And there he is down there, and there's the control. That's the last one. So just run, Forrest, run. So I use a contactless SI or SIAC, and that means I can. But here I was running so fast, I thought maybe I didn't actually get the control, but I just checked to see if I could hear the sound, and just one last dash up the hill. And yeah, Martin is already getting his time checked, and behind me is Bruno, who's coming in 10, 20 seconds. It was a great race, great fun, and thank you to the organizers, Okost. I hope you enjoyed the video. Subscribe, leave a comment if you like me to make comments on other videos. Thank you for watching.